In this example, we'll revisit the sliders that we used in class to talk about the relationship between shutter, aperture, and ISO. As we mentioned in class, it's always nice to try to set that ISO first when you're using one of the user priority modes. In this case, we have it on shutter priority. And it's a bright sunny day, so I've set my ISO at 100. I'm going to be doing some wildlife photography, and I know that I'm going to need at least 1/500th of a second to be able to stop the motion. Unfortunately, I didn't bring my f2.8 lens with, and at an ISO of 100, with my shutter speed set at 1/500th of a second, the camera wants to select an f2.8 aperture setting to perfectly expose the image. Unfortunately, I don't have my f2.8 lens with, but one thing that I can do is I can change the ISO setting, and I can increase that 1, 2, 3 stops to 800. Now my camera can select an aperture 1, 2, 3 stops greater to f8. The extra benefit in this case is that not only could I shoot at 1/500th of a second and have the camera pick f8 for an aperture, but I could also increase that shutter speed to 1/1000th of a second, and the camera still has that range to be able to choose f5.6. If we switch over to aperture mode, and again start out with our ISO setting at 100, imagine that we're doing some wedding photography and we want a picture of the entire aisle to be in focus. We need a deep depth of field, so in aperture priority, I'm selecting the aperture at f22. The camera is going to correspond by choosing 1/30th of a second to have enough light make contact with the sensor to properly expose the image. Well, I can't hold the camera steady at 1/30th of a second, and I don't have a tripod. What I can do instead, though, is I can change the ISO, and I can increase that 2 stops to ISO of 400, which allows my camera to be able to, I can still choose that f22 for the aperture and keep that deep depth of field, and my camera is now able to go 2 stops faster in its shutter speed to 1/125th of a second, which I can hold still.